Highness, ladies and gentlemen, it's been such a pleasure to welcome everybody and have so many friends in the room together. So David Tweedy, who is the founding chair of Leuchie House, is going to say a few words, and he's going to talk about our first decade that so many of you have been part of. I'll talk a little bit about our aspirations for our second decade. Her Royal Highness may say a few words, and then Sophie Tulloch, the outgoing chair of the Leuchie Forever Fund, will bid us all on our way. And in amongst all of that, we've got a very short film to show you, to give you a sense of what Leuchie is about, because unfortunately, most of you haven't had the opportunity to be in the house today and for some time. So David, can I invite you to come up and say a few words?
Your Royal Highness, Lord Lieutenant, ladies and gentlemen. There was an Anglican bishop who was inducting a new vicar, and during the vicar's sermon he came out with the words that some of the happiest days of his life were spent in the arms of a woman who was not his wife. There was a deathly silence. Old ladies stopped knitting and the teenagers paid attention for the first time, and he then went on to say, "It was of course my mother." Well, the bishop thought that was a great line, so next Sunday in the cathedral, some of the happiest days in his life were spent in the arms of a woman who was not his wife. And then the old boy glazed over and said, "And for the life of me, I can't remember who she was." But I remember 2011, July 2011, the MS Society had announced that Leuchie was to close. They were going to give up respite care. Staff were going to be made redundant. Guests' holidays were cancelled. And they'd reckoned without the formidable Mary O'Keefe, who was the manager of Leuchie at the time. And she set out to create a completely new charity to continue serving the guests that had come here. She asked me to join the trustees. I'd seen organisations like Leuchie before, ones with no assets, lots of liabilities, no income, lots of costs for the staff. But these were organisations I was winding up, not starting out. I felt a bit like Moses coming to the Red Sea, turning to the Israelites and saying, "I hope you brought your wellies, I haven't done this before." And we certainly hadn't. Well, Mary, with Sir Hugh and Janie, who are our landlords here, set about constructing a team of trustees. Very distinguished naval officer, eminent lawyers, accountants, nursing personnel, the wife of one of our former guests, all came in, and the incomparable John McCluskey, QC, who's no longer with us, sadly. John was brilliant at law. He actually drafted Scottish legal acts for about 50 years from both Holyrood and Westminster. He could spot a problem in an act a mile away, which was just as well, because when he looked at the Roaming Scotland Act, it was found that you could tramp through everybody's garden, and he managed to stop that at the last minute. He also had to deal with the regulation of sex shops, and he had brought in the rule that anything that would encourage sexual activity should be banned, and then suddenly realised that double beds would be banned in Scotland, and he had to amend that too. But what was really good about this was the staff. They could have left. The future wasn't great. It was uncertain, but they stuck with it, and they were a real great asset to us all. Mary was formidable. The problem with Leuchie was that we only make half the money from the guests. The other half come from donations. Well, she set off to make sure we got these donations. The Scottish Government gave us some, but by no means all. We had to raise well over $500,000. And Mary just went like a Sherman tank. She hates me saying that. And just got it by dealing with it. She got the donations, and that was it, saved for 1 year, and then we had to do it the next year, and so on. And we have to thank Angus and Sophie, because we were really worried we wouldn't make it. Twice we just about went down, and we were concerned about redundancy for the staff, and Angus and Sophie said, "We'll raise the money." I'm surprised if any friends left. You can see their friends by the hunted look in their eyes, but they were brilliant. And we had problems getting the right staff, well-trained, yes, but they also have to relate to the guests, very special staff we need here. And we had the famous beast from the east when Leuchie was cut off for 2 days and the farmers eventually came to our rescue. The Korean War, there was an American brigade who had their motto up in front of their camp, great big letters, second to none. A week later, about 200 yards down the road, the Canadian Brigade had its motto up. It just simply said, none. And Leuchie is quite unique. It's something that was really encouraging people. We've people here from the very prestigious hotels in Edinburgh who've given a lot of furniture from the refurbishments. The charity was the charity of the Scottish Open, and just recently you probably remember that they've won the fundraising campaign of the year with the Great Hair Trail, which was absolutely unbelievable last year. These 6-foot hairs, absolutely brilliant. But we've also been very fortunate in our patrons. Big Gavin, you must be Gavin, you can, yes, can't miss him. But you know, Gavin inspired people so many, not just in the rugby field, but he also comes here and chats to the guests, and it's always great to see you, Gavin. Thanks very much for all your support. And Ma'am, your service for us here, I was quite surprised that you agreed when we asked you. We fingers crossed, we knew you were very interested in the caring professions and so on, but I know what your diary's like. And we might have failed, and that wouldn't have been a good thing on your record card, you know, if we'd gone down just after you came. But you agreed, and you didn't just agree, but you came and didn't just go round the guests and look at what was going on. But with your background experience, I was quite surprised at the tips you were giving us and the people to contact, and we took you up on that, and it was a great help. But it's also been a great help encouraging others to support us, knowing that you were behind us from the start. So many thanks for that. I was quite sorry when my term as chair came to the end in 2019, but two things I did that were especially good. One was making sure we got Gavin as a patron, and then later on both Mark Bevan as CEO, and persuading Stuart Pearson to take over from me as the chair. I remember saying to Stephen that this was my baby I was handing over, but this baby is about to become a teenager. And that's a totally different parenting problem. And it was time for me to disappear. But back to the Korean War, when we looked at that, it was quite interesting seeing what some of them said. I remember an American general who was accused of retreating, and he turned to the press and said, "I'm not retreating, I'm advancing in a different direction." Well, Leuchie's undoubtedly advancing in a different direction, and I'm now going to ask Mark to tell you all about it. Mark.
David, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you if you'll bear with me for 4 or 5 minutes, because I want to show you a film that we've just had made. And the film, I think, shows Leuchie in a way that is very difficult to understand for those of you who've not managed to have the opportunity to come inside. So bear with us while we just play this, please. So folks, I hope that gave you a bit of an insight into what you and we together are all about. And I think when I'm describing Leuchie to people, or even when I'm hearing Leuchie described back to me, people say it's a magnificent building and a wonderful staff team and it's well equipped and all of those sorts of things. But that's not what Leuchie is, that's what Leuchie needs. I think what Leuchie is 2 things, really. I think one is kindness, and I think the other is hope. And it's the kind of kindness that somebody with a neurological condition has when they say to their loved one and their carer, "I'm going to go away and give you a break." It's the kind of kindness that every one of the team who work at Leuchie, every one of the volunteers who are here today, show when they come here and give of their time and their emotional energy to ensure that people who come to Leuchie have the very best of time, as Paul was saying. And the kindness of you all here, because, as I said at the start, you are part of this story. We can only be who we are because who you are, and because of what you contribute to making Leuchie so special. But it's also about hope, because we have people who come here for the first time and they worry about what this is going to be like, as they're worried about their condition. Everybody who comes to Leuchie has a condition which is going to get worse. And when they come to Leuchie, they can see that there is still a great quality of life to be had. And it's an irreverent place. It's not in any way sad or difficult to work in Leuchie. It's a place where we really enjoy and embrace life. I see Barbara in the back smiling as I say that, because she's as irreverent as they come. And so with all of that, we want to do more. We have, for 10 years, with your help, as it said up there, delivered 40,000 nights of respite. But that's all contained within the building and within the 18 beds that we have. And one of the trustees said to me at the start of COVID, write a list of the things that you would like to do, and then see if COVID presents an opportunity. And as the words entered my mind, I was thinking, this is just a ridiculous thing to say. But I did, as he said, David Ogilvy, who isn't here, and started to think about how could we do more. And with the help of Sandy Ford, who is in the room somewhere, architect, and his wife Anne, we managed to completely refurbish the lower ground floor. We managed to recreate bedrooms and bathrooms as wet rooms. We put baths in, simple things you might think. But most people who live at home and have their home adapted have their bathroom converted into a wet room and a shower room, and they don't get that simple opportunity to relax in a bath. And we did all of that, on the back of the generous support of everybody in this room, and not least the Leuchie Forever Fund, who contributed £300,000 to enable that to happen. And those 3 extra rooms mean that as we're coming out of COVID, we can continue to do more for more people. We also started to think about how we might reach a little bit further, and how this whole community of guests and volunteers and staff can work together. And we formed a relationship with the very unlikely National Robotarium. And the National Robotarium have lots of kit and whiz-bang stuff and ideas, but they have no real-life, real-world use case for this stuff. And we have loads of real-life, real-world people with real needs, but no fancy kit and technology, so it's kind of obvious, really. So believe it or not, there's a group of guests who come to Leuchie, working with the team here, who are designing care robotics for the next generation. These things that whiz around and bring you the things that you need, and know that you need them. We're about to start a multi-million-pound study with a number of universities and the NHS on predicting urinary infections, something which many people who come here suffer from, something which costs the NHS something like £500 million a year to treat. And there's a thought that some technology could predict these early, and you take a quick, cheap blue pill and stop all the horror that a urinary infection brings. And we can do that because we have a community of people who are interested in taking things forward. But beyond that, we started over COVID to think what respite could be. And for 10 years, respite in Leuchie has been 4, 7 or 11 nights of a break, and it's been fabulous. But maybe respite could be other things. And so we were very fortunate in that we were able to open a place called Dennis Duncan House in Durlton. And Dennis Duncan House is a self-catering accommodation, purpose-built, fully equipped, and it can give a whole family a break, something that we can't quite do here at Leuchie. And then beyond Dennis Duncan House, we started to think about what if somebody couldn't come for 4, 7 or 11 nights to Leuchie, but still needed support, perhaps in their own home. So this year, we're starting to deliver what we're calling Leuchie at Home. And through Leuchie at Home, some of the team here and some volunteers will go out and regularly support people in their own home, in the local community, for a couple of hours every single week, and give a loved one that opportunity to go and dig in the garden, have a cup of tea, pay the bills, go and see a friend. Not necessarily have to have 4, 7 or 11 nights. And we talked a little bit about technology as well. And you saw an example in the film of a simple thing of being able to use your voice to open and close curtains, or call for help, or change the channel on the TV, or turn on and off a light. A little thing that's given a little bit of independence back to somebody, a bit of that dignity back again. And we've equipped the whole of the new build in Leuchie with this smart technology to allow people to see the art of the possible. And we're developing that over time and increasingly starting to put it in the homes of people who come here, so that when they're at home, that can go with them, and there's a bit of a legacy from there as well. So in all these ways, we're continuing to protect the core service at Leuchie, whilst reaching beyond the walls and trying to do a little more for more people. And we can only do that, as I said at the start, because of all that you and a number of people who couldn't be here today do to help us. So on behalf of everybody who isn't here to thank you, could I thank you for all that you do for Leuchie? And in doing that, invite Your Royal Highness to come and say a few words.
thank you, Mike. Well, can I just say what a pleasure it is to be actually here? It's only a year late. But by my standards, that's not too bad as a COVID-related activity. Last week I was at an event, that was the 4th attempt. So this is not too bad. And the ability to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Leuchie, this stage of its evolution, it doesn't really matter too much when it happens. And the important thing is that it gives us an opportunity to reflect on just how much has been achieved in that period of time. The base, the excellent base it was working from, and the knowledge of so many that it was really worth keeping, and that it could get even better based on what they already knew. Places like this lovely house don't often get seen as the logical place to provide ongoing care for people who find it, whose mobility is an issue and perhaps their engagement is a problem. But my goodness, this place has more than repaid the faith in it in terms of the atmosphere, the very fact that it is a place that people enjoy coming to, all the environment around it, that it's looked after, that it has so much invested in it by people who work here and support it. The volunteers who come, those who live locally and understand its value, and those who come from much further afield. It wasn't so surprising that I saw the value of Leuchie. Starting the Princess Royal Trust for Carers hugely underlined the problems that carers face, particularly with respite. Now that started over 30 years ago, and we're still complaining that there's not enough respite. But it's rare to find respite of this quality anywhere, never mind in Scotland, anywhere else in Britain. That was a real issue. I've been patron of the College of Occupational Therapists for quite a long time too. So what you do here is a very, very much at the forefront of what OTs would really like to be able to do, which is to examine what technology can offer and make sure that it's appropriate for the individual. The art of the possible isn't always necessary, but you need to understand where it can best be used. And investing here, particularly during the lockdown period, was a very sensible use of both the time, the space and the funds you had available. I hope that many more of you will get the chance to just see what is now available and realise that there is more that could be done. There is more investment which would make a real difference. And what people learn here in terms of the technology that's available will become much more of available as a commercial, literally off the shelf purchase. But knowing what works will make a real difference to that becoming feasible. But there are so many people that make the difference here. I'm not sure that it would work at all without that input of people's knowledge and time and experience that has made it possible for people to have not only the right respite, but that has made a difference for them as individuals, but the whole family and the people who look after them and who keep coming back, and whose own contribution to where Leuchie goes next has been consistently called upon to help make those decisions and changes. And I hesitate to think how long that discussion about a new lift in the stairwell went on for. But I think all of you would agree that if you hadn't realised that that was an issue, it's a very, very good solution to the problem. So well done, everybody. And that's something that only comes with everybody working together. And Leuchie does that in the most extraordinary way. And today reflects some of that working together. But all of you have made an impact. But it is nice to have the opportunity to say thank you to all of those who've made a real difference to people's lives in the time that Leuchie has been functioning with the MS before, but with the foundation now, and what the Forever Fund has been able to do. And I hope all of you can take a great deal of satisfaction and a sense of achievement from what Leuchie stands for, what it has done for hearing the opinions of those who come and stay here. that's quite rare. This is, I have to tell you from my travels around the country, it is unique. And you have done something very special here, and I'm sure you want to keep it going. But from my perspective, thank you so much for making it feasible for Leuchie's magic to continue to work. Technology only goes so far. The magic, perhaps in the long run, is what really makes the difference. You can define that as you like, but I still call it magic. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, for those fabulous words. Doesn't leave me much to do, except to thank you all, and you particularly, very much for coming this afternoon. Without you, Leuchie wouldn't be the place it is. In that, I include Your Royal Highness's patronage, erstwhile Chairman of the Board. Coming onto the board is Jim McConville, who's going to take my place as the chair of the Leuchie Forever Fund. And for all of you volunteers, whose praises are very rarely sung, but you do a terrific job. All the staff, back room, front room, amazing. And Margaret, is she here? Who produced all that wonderful food. Will someone convey thanks to Margaret? And so if there's anything left in your glasses, raise an imaginary glass to Leuchie magic. Thank you very much.